Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Councillors, officers, members of the public and press. Welcome to our first Regeneration Services Committee of the new municipal year. This meeting is a remote meeting being held live streamed on the website and recorded. I'm now going to hand over to Denise Wimpenny from Democratic Services team. Denise.
Thank you, Chair. We'll now begin the meeting by way of a roll call of all those in attendance remotely, and may I request members to confirm that they have a paper copy of the agenda and can both hear and see councillors in the meeting. I will now begin the roll call. Councillor Christopher Akers-Belcher?
Yes, present, and I have a copy of the papers for today and I can see everyone present.
Councillor Paddy Brown?
Yes, exactly the same as Christopher.
Councillor Cassidy?
Yeah, I can see everybody and I've got the paperwork.
Councillor Lindridge? We can't hear you, Jim.
Sorry, I didn't unmute. Yes to all.
Okay, thank you. We have apologies from Councillor Lyons. Councillor Stoker as substitute?
Yeah, yes to all.
Councillor Marshall?
Yes to all.
Councillor Smith?
Yes to all.
Thank you. Can I now ask, are there any members that have joined the meeting that I've not called?
Councillor Young.
Councillor Young? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Yes, thank you. I'm here with all the papers.
Councillor Richardson? Is Councillor Richardson present? No, we'll just leave that for now. That concludes the roll call.
Councillor Cartwright's here as well, I think.
Councillor Cartwright? Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Richardson. That now concludes the roll call and I'll hand back to the Chair. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Denise. We'll move on to item 1. Any apologies for absence?
Sorry, Chair, back to me. Just one apology, Chair, from Councillor Lyons with Councillor Stoker as substitute.
Okay, thank you for that. We'll move on to item 2 to receive any declarations of interest by members. If there are none, we'll move on to item 3.1, which is a minute of our meeting held on the 11th of March, which have previously been circulated. If members can just note those. Are there any comments about those minutes? I can't see any hands up, so we'll move on to our budget and policy framework items for today. We'll move on to item 4.1, which is the Green Infrastructure Supplementary Planning Document, and I'll hand over to Kieran.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. I'm going to go through the report for you, and I've got Rebecca Cockburn on the line as well, who will be able to answer any questions at the end. So this report is part of the Budget and Policy Framework. The purpose of this report is to inform the committee of the consultation results on the draft Green Infrastructure Supplementary Planning Document and to seek approval for the amended SPD and to report to full council for full adoption. The previous SPD was produced in 2014. The SPD itself is split into 2 documents consisting of the main document and the action plan. The 2 documents combined highlight areas of green infrastructure within the borough, key projects that require development contributions, and highlight the overall importance of green infrastructure across the town. The updated document has been produced to reflect changes in both law. It also provides an up-to-date picture on green infrastructure projects and reflects the comments made by consultees. The SPD has been drafted in accordance with the Planning and Compulsory Purchase Act and the Town and Country Planning Regulations. The SPD was consulted on between February and April 2020, and this was a 10-week consultation period which goes over and above the 6-week statutory period normally required for SPDs. This takes into account an additional 2 weeks which was allowed for the coronavirus pandemic. Correspondence was sent to both statutory consultees and other organisations and interested parties. Representations and officer responses and the resultant amendment to the SPD is included within the consultation statement within the SPD itself. Moving on to the recommendations, it is recommended that committee note and agree the content of the revised green infrastructure.
Okay, thank you, Kieran. Councillor Young, you wanted to come in?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. I was just, I've obviously had I've just had a look at the
committee note. The content of the revised green.
Councillor Young.
Yeah, I'm here. I was just wondering whether Kieran was still speaking. That's all. Obviously, this is an infrastructure document. It talks about key areas around the town. It includes the kind of West Crimson Dean area and things like that, and I appreciate that. Is there anything? My question is there anything within this document that could be impacted by planning changes that are due to come in from government in September, or are we at a point where all of this is protected and it's stuff that that will remain infrastructure and will be kind of protected in that sense? Is there anything outside of that in terms of rural areas that may be affected or superseded by any changes in government legislation on planning? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Young. Kieran, is there anything that could be impacted on the changes that are being proposed by government? I think Kieran's...
I can answer this question, Chair, if needs be. I think Kieran.
Yeah, thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah, so with regards to your question, Councillor Young, we have done this SPD using the guidelines from Natural England and also the Council's ecologist, Graham Megson, who is very, very up to date with all the planning changes. And it's hoped that these sites will retain protection, and there's nothing that we can see or we can predict that will affect these sites in any way. So we're hoping that they will continue to have the same protection. Hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Rebecca. Mike, did you want to come back in on that?
Yeah, I have an anxiety, and I think we need to have a very firm view on this, because if the build mentality of Boris Johnson is to be believed, then no land potentially will be sacred. So I think we need to do some work and testing against what the changes that are being proposed by the government are, in order to make sure that we're a step ahead when it comes to the sweeping changes that they're proposing for September.
Well, can I suggest that once we receive the detail on the proposed changes, that we bring that to Regeneration, if there are going to be any amendments once we've had an opportunity to have a look at that? Would that satisfy you, Councillor Young?
I think so, but again, it's both ways, isn't it? I think they need to hunt that information out at the same time. So it'd be good if there was a two-way attack, because we know one thing is for sure, that if there's a drive towards build, and then we've got to be ahead of the game when it comes to what the government might do with regards to planning. Okay,
Kieran, did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Apologies, my connection dropped out right at the last minute. I caught the back end of Rebecca's answer, and she's perfectly correct in that the document, the SPD, has been produced in line with the latest guidance, with half an eye on what might be coming in September. So it's the best possible information that we've been captured inside this SPD at the time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Are there any other questions from members? If not, can we just move to recommendations under 8.1? Are members happy to agree those?
Agreed.
Jim, did you want to come in?
Agreed.
Jim, you're on mute.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, it's. Okay. I'd look through the papers, and the infrastructure, it seems to be quite comprehensive. There's just a couple of things I just want to add. In terms of Rosmere Park, I think that's a good start in terms of the biodiversity on there, with the cleaning the pond. I think it's really positive. you know, it's beneficial for residents. On another point, excuse me, I'm just lost myself here. Yeah, there we are. I noticed that you've gone through most of the areas with Seaton, Ward Jackson, the coast, etc., etc. There was no mention, I haven't noticed anything in relation to Newark Road on the Fens side of it, yeah, Greath and Beck. Was that missed out because it's already mentioned elsewhere and I haven't noticed? Because all the areas seem to be designated in chunks. Am I right there? Or is there a need to mention every single point in the town?
Anything you want to add, Rebecca or Kieran, for that?
I can add to that, Chair. Thank you for your question, Councillor Lindridge. We have an appendix in the back. I can't remember off the top of my head if Greath and Beck is included in that, but if it is a protected site, there might be reference to it there. We haven't gone through and listed every single point in the borough which could be included. We've taken main points from an internal consultation with the members of the Heritage and Countryside team, and they've kind of allocated some key projects which they would like to see, which is where we got the main kind of chunks and the areas from. So it won't have been missed off intentionally. I think there might just be higher priorities considered elsewhere. And if it is if it's got any kind of statutory protection, it'll be included in the appendix as well, which I will need to check up on. But yeah, I hope that answers your question.
I did go through it, and I didn't actually notice that. When I noticed the little chunks, Coast, Ward Jackson, Rosemary Park, Seaton Co, etc., etc. I just wanted to make sure it wasn't left out because there's lots of wildlife up there. It's close to the Beck, and it's an important conservation area. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. So if there's no dissent to the recommendations in the report, can I take that as that's accepted by members? And we will move on. Okay, thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 4.2, public rights of way and other access supplementary planning document. I believe this is you again, Kieran.
That's correct, Chair. Thank you. So this report is again part of the budget and policy framework. The purpose of this report is to inform the committee of the consultation results on the draft public rights of way and other access planning SPD, and to seek approval for the revised document and have this to be reported to full council for adoption. This new SPD is a brand new SPD, so it's not an update, this one, and it will sit within the existing suite of the planning documents. The aim of this document is to allow the council to define relevant standards and provide guidance in relation to public rights of way. This is to ensure that planning and development processes complements the network sufficiently enough to encourage active progression of the public rights of way. The SPD was consulted on between February and April 2020. Again, a similar 10-week consultation period over and above the statutory 6-week period. The additional 2 weeks was allowed for the coronavirus pandemic, and correspondence was again received from statutory consultees and other interested parties and organisations. All comments were received, were considered and incorporated into the SPD where appropriate, and it is recommended that the committee note the content of the public rights of way SPD and that the SPD be progressed to full council for adoption. Once adopted, this will form part of the Hartlepool Local Development Framework. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Kieran. Any questions or comments from members? I don't see any hands up, so I'll just move straight to the recommendation under 8.1. And could anyone indicate if there's any dissent to the recommendation as detailed in the report? If there's not, I'll take that as accepted. Thank you, everyone. All members should have received the additional 2 reports that have came out. So we've got nothing under 6 other items requiring a decision, but we do have 2 items today for information. Item 7.1, which is a strategic outcomes pathways for culture report. And I believe, Denise, you were taking this report.
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I'm taking this on behalf of the Director of Adults and Community-Based Services. This is to propose the progression of a strategic outcomes pathway for culture that will inform the priorities for the sector in Hartlepool and develop a vision for the town. Hartlepool is rich in culture and heritage, and there are a significant number of opportunities to pursue investment, and it is essential that all developments are well informed and there are clear outcomes. Therefore, it's proposed that we progress with a strategic outcomes pathway, which will take an approach which is consistently underway regarding sports and leisure. People will be placed at the heart of the cultural developments, ensuring that the future of culture is enriching the lives through health, economy, ecology and social interactions. Hartlepool has one of the lowest engagement rates in culture in the UK, with less than 20% of our population actively engaging in culture regularly, which is such a shame because I believe Hartlepool has the greatest assets and heritage in the country and is something we really need to build upon. The outcome pathway will be used to inform, progress and connect key cultural programmes that are already identified and making sure that we're delivering them and we're aware of what outcomes we are trying to achieve. So section 4.5 of the report, Chair, gives an update on where we are with the waterfront cultural event space and the links to the leisure centre. 4.6 talks about commissioning a community art sculpture which will provide a unique representation of Hartlepool and our social history. We've already received concepts from an American sculptor and work is progressing with our council engineers to scope the landscape and engineering considerations to inform where the sculpture or a number of sculptures can be located on the waterfront site. Refurbishment of the Headland Amphitheatre work has commenced as set out in section 4.7 of the report. Unfortunately, due to COVID-19, work was suspended when government stopped all construction works, and now we are ready to start back up. We've got a further delay due to birds nesting, and we can't undertake the works for some time, but we are progressing with that, and we will be on site in March. And we'll be at planning committee soon and we're waiting for approval. We've received no objections, so I'm sure the chair of planning who's at our meeting will make sure we progress that very quickly. Unfortunately, Borough Hall, Town Hall Theatre and Art Gallery improvements have been placed on hold for now as the Arts Council have suspended all funding streams. They're focusing on supporting the cultural sector themselves and making sure they can continue. As soon as those funding streams come back up, we'll be putting our bids in. And we are waiting for the combined authority to agree their cultural programme, which is taking a lot longer than any of us would have wanted. Pending the outcome of an application to hold the tall ships, which was considered a finance and policy earlier, I think it was last month, Hartlepool will review our events programme and make sure that all our events actually tie in together to look at the outcomes being delivered. So members are asked to note the proposal of a strategic outcomes framework and provide any comments on the process that is being followed. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Denise. Are there any comments or questions from members? Councillor Stokel.
Yeah, sorry, Chair. I haven't received the paperwork for the items for information.
Right. Okay. We'll need to send those out to you. They're only for information at this stage, so we'll make sure that they're circulated to you as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Chair. Same as Cameron, I haven't received anything as yet.
Okay, so we'll make sure that they're sent out, and we'll pick that up with Democratic Services. Councillor Lindridge.
Thank you, Chair. A positive report there. I am concerned, in fact, in 4.3, where we've only got 20% population actively engaged, and I think that's why it's paramount that we look at 4.9 with the tall ships. That'll be an exciting opportunity to engage with the public again. I think we need to progress that as fast as we can with the Tees Valley Combined Authority. Hope that we can push this through. And I think as well as that, in 4.6, sculptures are important. I think that they're important for the town, that when you're getting visitors, from all over the country, they need to see something that they can identify with Hartlepool. And I think the waterfront project is really important. We've got to link up everything so that we're a progressive town, and I think we're going in the right direction. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Lindridge. Councillor Young.
And just based on what Denise says, I don't know whether I need to declare an interest now.
We've had no objections, no.
can I just make one point in regards to item 7 on the consultation, that perhaps I should declare I'm a board member on a National Museum of the Royal Navy, and they also have a culture dimension to the work that they are progressing, and very interested in sculptures and their own sculpture park. So perhaps we can include them in any consultation going forward. Are there any other comments from members? Or members, I'll ensure that we do send it out to Councillor Stokely and Councillor Brown, but it is for information purposes at the moment.
Chair, just to come back on Councillor Lindridge's report, there's a report on tall ships seeking funding going to Cabinet at the Combined Authority tomorrow. So fingers crossed we'll have some good news for you by tomorrow afternoon.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, so if members can just accept that for information purposes, and apologies for those members who hadn't received the reports in advance of today's meeting. But I think Denise has articulated, what the purpose of the report was anyway. Okay, we'll now move on to the next item, which is item 7.2, private rented sector condition stock survey. Denise.
Thank you, Chair. This is to seek members' approval to commission a private rented sector condition survey, which links to student accommodation, and members will recall a conversation's been held in council around this previously. Hartlepool Town Centre, like many town centres, is facing an unprecedented number of challenges. The changing of consumer preferences and the impact of COVID-19 has, really brought that on a lot quicker than anyone envisaged. And it's really important that the town centre now no longer relies on the traditional retail issues and looks to its long-term sustainability. And I've quoted in the report there a couple of two quotes for members where it actually talks about repopulating and refashioning high streets, using community hubs, including housing, health, leisure, so making them more a livability space, not just a place for people to come and shop. Members will also be aware of the Towns Fund, the Town Centre Master Plan and High Street Task Force that was considered at Finance and Policy, and some members also sit on the board and have been on a board meeting today, so I won't go over what we've already discussed. In addition to the Town Centre board, the council is also working on the production of our 3-year council plan, as you're aware, but we're also now looking at a recovery plan following COVID, and we've taken virtual consultations with staff, anchor organisations, the VCS, businesses, and a lot of fabulous intel and intelligence and views is being captured. And we need to make sure that that comes into our council plan, and that also then feeds into our town centre master plan and enables us to actually make sure we've got a town that's set for the future and is sustainable. The proposal there, Chair, is as we grow and exist and develop our town centre, we need to actually look at a number of different sectors, one of which being housing. And the advantage of having housing in the town centre is that people are encouraged to stay active longer. They're visiting the town and leisure recreation, as well as having access to shops and other services. The private rented sector, as we're aware of, accounts for 15% of the housing stock in Hartlepool and has an important role to play. However, the private rented sector doesn't necessarily always have the quality of standards that we would want. And unfortunately, the last survey that we had on private rented condition surveys was undertaken in 2009. And it is important that we actually have that information to identify where we need to invest going forward. Members will also recall we commissioned ARC4 to undertake a student accommodation needs assessment, and that is attached as the Appendix 1. What that identified was that need currently is being met. However, as the colleges and university, i.e. the Newcastle Northern School of Art, will grow, there may be need for more students going forward in the accommodation. But the concern that's come out of there is that we couldn't really identify the quality of the student accommodation. So further work is required in that. So the actual recommendation, Chair, is that we note the content of the report. We undertake a desktop survey to identify the number of students living in private rented sector. And we also look to commission some work going forward. The difficulty we've got, of course, with the coronavirus and where we are, it's very difficult to actually go into properties at the moment due to social distancing and making sure that people are safe and protected. So therefore, we need to actually look at when we can best do that, because if we go out to tender now, it's very likely that the cost will be increased substantially. And to do that, we also need to feed that work into the medium-term financial proposals, which will be considered in Finance and Policy this December. Happy to answer any questions, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Denise. Any questions or comments from members? If not, can I just make a couple of comments, because under item 4.6 it talks about the existing provision, and we have 159 halls of residence, but the need is between 350 and 598. And I think we need, with the need for social housing in Hartlepool, that actually if we progress with good quality student accommodation, that's going to complement our town deal, as it were, to reinvigorate the town centre, that would also release between 200 and 350 social housing homes across the town. So that's one of the considerations, but also to build in with that, I think the piece of work we also need to do, as well as quality, is what is going to be best to complement the town deal from a location point of view, whether that is a public investment, public-private investment, or a private investment, and whether or not by the time we get to consider going out for commission, and whether or not we can weave that in, like, you know, what is going to be the best option for Hartlepool in order to get good quality accommodation to create a critical mass in the centre of town. Are there any other comments from members? If not, like, you know, a member's happy to accept the recommendations. If I don't see any hands up, I'll assume everyone is content with the recommendations. No hands up, so that was very quick for our first Regeneration virtual meeting, unlike the meeting I had this morning, but that's another story. I have nothing under item 8, so can I thank everybody, all the members of the public who may have tuned in to watch us live streamed, councillors and officers for their presentations today. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you.